I want to thank everybody for watching my show, Emet, which literally means in Hebrew, the truth. And my name is Andrew Fetter, and it is the lucky day of Friday the 13th, November 13th, 2020. And I'm sure everybody is on their edge, on their seats, needles, depressed, anxiety, you name it. They're probably feeling it from what's going on with the elections. They're hearing all kinds of information. There's disinformation and fake news and claims and everything else. But the vast majority of people, might be under the impression that the media is the one that selects who is the president elect, which of course it isn't. They never have, never will. That's not how it works. So I want to get back to something so you'll have a greater understanding, which I'm going to try to elaborate on. Hopefully, then you'll have a better understanding. And I'm going to do as much with certain factors as I can. And I won't go into too much detail because a lot of details are starting to unfold as time we see every day. There's certain new things coming out, new discoveries, new evidence of fraud and irregularities, as they call it, and other factors that are becoming pretty clear that I believe there is racketeering by Democrats or their powers to be in cooperation with the media to sort of push their candidate, I would say China Joe, to be president, which there is no way in hell he's going to be president. Let me explain. As you know, I have done in a past show, I talked about gullibility or being gullible, and also what it being naive is. And unfortunately, I find a lot of people, frankly, are pretty gullible and pretty naive to suck down the mainstream fake news media. And that includes MSNBC, CNN, and now, of course, we now know Fox. I always had questions about Fox, but they have showed their true colors in this recent election. And by the way, I'm no longer ever watching. I've basically boycotted watching Fox News. I knew some areas were shambles. I saw things double talking certain issues. But I like Sean Hannity. I like Laurel Ingraham and Tucker Carlson to some degree. I think he knows certain things, but except for talking about international stuff, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But unfortunately, that network is no longer news, and they may as well change their news corporation to another fake news media. I do recommend watching Newsmax, which gives you the facts, and they do have shows that give you information, and it does come from a conservative side, yes, or a more right wing side. But they do have their columnists and their opinion makers, and that's well put. But they also have their standard news product where they just hear the facts, you decide, kind of thing, and they don't make any assertion of one way or another during when they disperse that information out. So going back to what's gullible, and I think this is important to understand. I'll go back to the definition of gullible and naive. Gullible, by definition, is easily persuaded to believe something, even if it's being credulous. And lo and behold, we see how many Americans being gullible, believe in the BS crap of these networks. I mean, literally, in the call of the elections, calling Biden as president-elect number one, calling out instances where there are contested states, such as Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, even Nevada and Arizona, which, there's like, I guess, 5 or 6 states that are highly questionable and things and obviously since President Trump has not conceded, Biden could never be considered a president-elect, and the president-elect is only called that, actually, it's by definition, after the delegates or electors at the electoral college, elect elect the president, because actually our votes do not elect the president. Electors at the electoral college elect the president. And that's why it's called, he's now the president-elect. And then, of course, when he swears, or she puts their name on and swear in under oath during their inauguration. That's when they change from president-elect to president. So, unfortunately, you have the gullible and naive being showing lack of experience, wisdom, or judgment. Let's swallow this crap up, okay? That's the first thing. At first, I was sort of shocked when I saw that, and I knew something was up. It did not make sense. Seeing some of the votes, and of course I'm going to get into how they came supposed the ballots when Trump was way ahead, like for example in Pennsylvania, or about 800,000 votes, and out of magic thin air, when they stopped counting, and then suddenly all these votes came in, and then they gave his bull crap about, oh yeah, by the way, we have some mail-ins we haven't counted. Yeah, they were waiting for the shipment of the, I quote, the Biden ballots, which I'll get into. But first of all, like I said, Biden is not, I repeat, not a president-elect. If the media had any credibility, what they would have said, if they had any maturity, which they aren't, or being responsible journalists, they could have said, he's the projected winner. And then we even call him president, the projected winner of this state, projected winner, that's fine. You can put a little check mark, we project it. And they can go back and say, oh, well, we found out now later he's not, because it's projected possibly the winner. It's malfeasance and ignorant, and you're being a total ignoramus to even call Biden as a president-elect. And if they shove this crap down your throat, and you're naive and gullible to believe it, I'm sorry, but you're utterly portraying yourself as a moron. And I don't think people are morons if they open their eyes and see the difference of what facts are. First of all, as I said, only a gullible, I had to be so candid, a naive, gullible person would believe any of the crap about Biden right now. We don't know where the state is, because, like I had said, it's within. I don't know where in the Constitution, for example, the media says who won a presidential election. It doesn't say. If you can show me, please show me. That's why they should have said projected winner. Now they go back. Well, 2016, Trump was considered the president-elect. That was because after the results came in, Hillary Clinton had the opportunity, if she so wished to contest the election or the results. And if that's so, he would be considered the projected winner, not president-elect. But because she conceded the election, leaving Donald Trump the clear winner, then he is established as the president-elect. You can literally say that, but technically he would be actually after the electoral college meets. So, but he would still be considered because it's conceded. So you can't compare one of the two. And like I said, that would be the responsible thing, but unfortunately, the media didn't do that. The fake news media are nothing more as propagandists. Now, as I said, it would have been more probable to call him as the projected winner, as I stated, but they have not. Now, we know the media, the lying media, would come out and lie and make these ridiculous proclamations, and literally after, which which is sort of like throws in the face of our Constitution. They always say, "Oh, we're following democracy." Well, they're not being following democracy. First of all, we're a republic, actually, not technically a democracy. But you will notice that on Friday, the day before they declared him as a so-called president-elect, Joe Biden, that SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, submitted not just a ruling, but an order to the Pennsylvania to divide and segregate all the mail-in votes that came in after November 3rd at 8 p.m. their time, and to segregate those and not include those ballots in the general count. But basically, Pennsylvania, and specifically Pittsburgh, and more emphatically would be Philadelphia, said basically, screw you to the Supreme Court. We're gonna count them anyway, and then we're gonna proclaim that they're winning. And that's what they did on Saturday. Instead of segregating the votes out, which they were required to, violating a Supreme Court order, allowing those 800,000 illegal votes to be commingled and counted, they basically then said, okay, he's now the winner, right? That's what you heard in the news. So they jumped the gun, they went ahead and did all this crap. And they did it for a reason, because they're just pushing down your throat, making a bunch of stuff up, and making you predispose that he's the winner when he isn't. We don't know yet. Technically, I would say to you, at this time, no, they're legally, neither one has won the election. Neither one would be considered enough electors to win the election, because those 5 states are thrown up in question, and neither one would technically have enough of the 270 minimum electors to become be president for starting in 2021. As I stated, but you have to think about it. I mean, honestly, have you ever gone to a judge or been before a court, and the judge tells you, "Hey, you better do A, B, and C," and then you don't do A, B, and C? What do you think that judge will do? Well, it sort of pisses off the judge, number one. They'll probably throw the book at you for violating their court order. It's called contempt of a court. And they'll throw the book at you, like I said. And whatever you say wouldn't matter. It's done. You're basically, testimony is invalid. Anything you say after that, they don't even care, because you lost any credibility. So this is basically what's going to happen. I foresee happening with Pennsylvania. They got a real problem. I foresee that's going to be an issue. So Biden does not have the right now, even the projected now, following these circumstances in these states, because right now there's there's substantial evidence of fraud and irregularities and unlawful conduct in violation of federal laws, and of course what I just mentioned, the Supreme Court orders that Pennsylvania has violated. And so we're going to see, like, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada. Well, Nevada has some serious problems in Clark County, and Arizona and Georgia going through not a recount, but what they call an audit. They've been and by the way, there's a big difference between an audit and a recount. Recount just simply runs them through a machine and they recount them. So why would you need a recount if you know the ballots are fraud? Maybe the frauds aren't lawful. Maybe they're illegal. Maybe they came in later. Maybe they're duplicate. Maybe the scanner or the machines or the computers didn't scan them correctly, which I'll get into real quickly. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on that are holy Toledo, as they would say. Some people would say. But neither Biden or Trump could legally be considered the projected winner at this point. I mean, literally. And if we really had a real responsible media, a credible media, they would have said so. You know what? We're pulling back from calling Biden president-elect because we can't even call him projected the winner. I mean, if you look at, by the way, Real Clear Politics right now, they actually removed Pennsylvania being on with Biden. I'm surprised they haven't done with Michigan yet. I know Newsback and other organizations have not given those projected states as winners because they're obviously, all five of them are in very questionable territory of legalities or high evidence of fraud and etc. So neither one could be called, and you have to be literally. And I'm straightforward. I don't like use. I know sometimes I'll use the word, but I hate that you have to be an utter moron to believe the contrary. And sorry to like I said, being so blunt, but you have to be really gullible and naive to actually think that Biden today is a projected winner. I mean, it's being more of an ignoramus to even consider Biden as a president-elect. So please throw that out. He is not the president-elect. He's not even right now the projected winner anymore on any of those 5 states. There's a big, as I say, question mark on all of them. So let's use our common sense and some facts. You know, one of the things that you can tell that there's something seriously wrong, and an infant, a little kid would know there's a problem here. Now, you know, Obama, he was a pretty charismatic, candidate. And he had a huge following, right? And he has a huge popular vote. Well, this year, of course, Trump surpassed it, I believe, by 1 million or 2. He's like at 72 million, but that's at the votes now. Who knows? I think he has actually more. But who the hell would honestly believe that Joe Biden carried 6 to 7 million more votes than Obama in 2008? Please, you either have to be pretty naive or pretty stupid to believe that Obama got more of the national vote than Joe Biden. I mean, it's absurd, okay? And you have to put this in question. This is a little simple math. We know that Trump, just by the votes in Florida and in Texas and elsewhere, that the Hispanic American vote for Trump, I think it got close to 30% or over 30% and maybe more. There were some places he got all of most of it, like 80%. But on average, he literally doubled what he did in 2016 substantially. And he did the same thing with the African American vote. I'm doing on the minimum. He only had 8% back in 2016, and now they're looking at like close to 20%. Think about that. He has a minority vote. He doubled, okay, more than doubled in a lot of cases. He even substantially increased his Asian vote. And by the way, he also increased his support and vote for the urban white woman that they said he wasn't going to get. He even did better this time than in 2016. So how the hell did he lose the election? Then you look at here's another common sense factor. How is it that the GOP increased their congressional seats? At this time, by the way, it's 10 seats. And the GOP is still maintaining their majority of the U.S. Senate. And their president, the Republican president, loses? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Even with common sense. Without looking into the things. I mean, that's just like, hey, light bulb went off. I think there's some serious crap going on here. I mean, if I told that to any of my grandkids, they would like open up their eyes like, Grandpa, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't. So let's look at a couple of little things that came out. No, you probably heard maybe about some software issues. Well, In Michigan, for example, they use a software called Dominion to do their counting of their ballots. What they do is they'll shove in the ballots in the scanner, and the scanner picks it up and reads the ballot, supposedly reads the ballot, and boop, it goes. Let's say whoever the candidates are, takes the information and bam into their electronic system, right? You know, you scan it on a scanner, and the scanner figures out. You ever done that with like a resume or anything, and it sort of figures out what's there, right? Well, that's supposedly what Dominion was supposed to do. Now, this software they found out in, I believe it was in, was it Wisconsin or Michigan? I may have mixed them up. They had one county that actually flipped 6,000 votes from from Trump to Biden. 6,000 votes alone in this one county. And there's like, think about it, there's 47, I believe there's 47 counties in Michigan alone. So that switch, by the way, is not 6,000 more Biden. It's literally actually 12% is the spin, because, you know, if you subtract 6 and you add 6, the differential is 12%, right? So it's even more exaggerated. So OAN, which I believe is a credible news org, even though they're on the conservative, they wouldn't be putting out this, but from their data and from reports, and there is substantial reports of this, and I know Trump had posted this, and it is substantiated by that, and everybody knows Trump, remember they spied on him, and everybody laughed about it, and he was spied on. Everybody thought, oh, what happened with the Russia? He's connected with Russia, and well, that turned into a hoax too. Moving the embassy in Jerusalem, there's not going to be a problem, there's not going to be any riots, and everybody thought the whole world was going to end, and nothing happened. You know, I can go down the list of all the stuff. Trump was right, they were wrong. And of course, he's right, but this is from an OAN report on Dominion, and they surmised that there was about 2.7 million nationally a switch from Trump to Biden. Think about that. 2.7 million ballots arbitrarily switched from Trump to Biden. So if you think about that, the really change is 5.4 million. So you know that 5 million where Biden's winning by 5 million votes? You can subtract that off, because technically if you subtract just the Dominion switch alone, Trump is leading in the popular vote. Okay, just that alone. And there's huge credible evidence that Dominion software has this problem. I mean, there's substantial evidence. There's reports. There was actually, I believe it was in May, a software technician. I don't believe his name is. He was being interviewed, and he surmised that Dominion would actually cause this problem. It had serious problems of manipulation, because remember they always said that, oh, Dominion, everything's subjugated within its own bubble, like all the electronics, ever the scanning. Well, Dominion relies on the internet. Okay, so when they put that software in, anybody can. It's very hackable to change stuff in it, and they found that. You can place in malware or anything and screw Dominion from the outside, and people can manipulate it and therefore create things that happen. Now, what's really interesting, you'll find out all the changes that have occurred conveniently more than ever happen to happen in all the battleground states conveniently with this Dominion thing. There's actually a report that was an actual report on Dominion. An investigation prior to the election by Texas, because all the states look into what software they're going to use, and they literally highlighted all of the problems with the software of being corrupt and easily accessed to be hacked. Okay, hacked and then manipulated. So there's a serious problem with Dominion. So that 2.7 million switch, which is effectively really a 5.4 million switch, is very valid. Now, I did mention about the issue of Pennsylvania. technically when Justice Alito, and by the way, it's not just him. There was actually, the justices vote on it, so probably maybe 5-4, 6-3. We don't know what the vote was, but they had issued a court order from the Supreme Court demanding Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, or basically all Pennsylvania, to segregate all votes that came in after November 3rd, 8 p.m., because under Pennsylvania law, that was what only ballots that came in before that date would be acceptable. And you have to think about that, why that is constitutionally. There's an issue. There's two actually issues on that constitutionally. One, you can look up the Constitution. I'm not going to go through that. You can look it on your own, or you can find out in yourself. But in the Constitution, only the legislature is the sole authority on how the process of elections would occur. That includes when, where, how, and whatnot. Okay, they're the sole authority. No judicial within can unilaterally change the law, and certainly no executive, including a governor, AG, or even a secretary of state, can arbitrarily change any laws. Only and including the process, only ones who could do that is the legislative of that state. And that's where there was a problem, because the judicial within Pennsylvania arbitrarily tried to change it and give an extension which violated that right. Okay, there's also an issue that actually it violates equality of protection for voters. So let's say, example, you want to vote in person. The date is November 3rd. So if somebody's ballot is allowed to arrive afterward, let's say November 4th, then it's not equal protection of voting rights. It violates the Equal Protection Act, actually, but also violates the Constitution. I forget which amendment, but offhand, but it does violate the course of being equal in voting. I believe it's the 14th Amendment. Anyway, so let's say that would break off where I want to go in person, I'm going to vote on November 4th or November 5th or November 6th. There's no real date then. The date is when he comes in, so it's not equal. So if somebody comes in person, he has to do it, or she, by November 3rd. But if you mail it in, well, hello, it can come in whatever. So it's when that ballot is there physically. So the ballot, it's up to your responsibility if you're mailing it in to make sure it gets there. And that's why, you would have to drop it in, and it's up to, you're relying on them to carry it out. But you forsake that when you do a mail-in. I personally, last couple of elections, I've done absentee, and I know that it's to be sent. And I send it in, and then you can go. I go online, and you can verify. Yes, and I always do it real early. As soon as I get that thing, unless I do it in person, I like doing early voting a lot of times. I would go and fill it out, send it off, and then I go online, and then you can double check, and where a registered voter. Then I go and double check, and yeah, it arrived, and I did that actually. And okay, my ballot's there supposedly. Okay, I don't know if they scan it and just suddenly switch to Biden, but I'd be shocked. Anyway, but that's what you do. Okay, so that's equal protection. So like I have further explained, SCOTUS was about to probably more than likely going to throw out all those ballots. So this becomes a problem. Let's say, hypothetically, they did separate the ballots, and and I'm not going to say they would, but let's say Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, or, they actually segregated the ballots, and like, okay, here's 700,000 ballots that came in afterward, and we'll go review them when they come in and decide if they count or not. Because inside that order, sort of telling you foretelling you what was in the mind of the Supreme Court, because they felt anything came after November 3rd, 8 p.m. was probably invalid, okay, because of those two measures. Probably because both it's constitutionally on both those counts invalid votes, or invalid ballots. So now, what if they commingled and mixed them up? What would they do? Well, somebody asked, and I was listening to a great attorney DeGenova on being aired, and he's actually, if you've heard of him, Joe DeGenova, he's a U.S. attorney. I was listening to an interview of his, and he's right when he said that the Supreme Court has two processes. One, they could throw out all the votes in the entire Pennsylvania and consider them invalid, and then leave it up to the legislature to select their own electors, which is a possibility. Or they can actually invalidate just those localities, those counties, such as in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia, and says, you know what, everything that came out of Philadelphia, adios amigo, man, that shit's out the door. We're not counting those votes. You mixing them up because basically it's called spoilage. It's like turning, you can't discern which was which, and you actually violated the order, then screw you, we're going to throw it all out. And my inclination, I think that's what they would, I highly believe that's what Supreme Court's going to do. That's my gut, is that they're not going to kick out all of Pennsylvania. They're more or less those counties that did not listen to the order and went on and said, screw you, we do whatever you want. Well, you piss off the Supreme Court like you piss off any judge, they're going to throw the book at you. More than likely, they're going to throw those out, and then people are going, well, what about their legal votes? Well, that's not the Supreme Court's problem. That's the people in Pennsylvania problem. For their responsibility is then they could rightly sue the people in Philadelphia for violating their constitutional rights if they did that. I'm just saying, they actually could. I could see a course in action because they violated court orders and they spoiled their own votes. I doubt people would do that, but I'm just saying. Anyway, then we go around to, I'm just going to give you a couple examples of fraud, irregularities. I named a couple. When we get to Wisconsin, it's really funny because Wisconsin, they also used Dominion, right? So we have that issue that suddenly flipped votes. But then there's a lot of issues that point to fraud or irregularity. Oh, and by the way, there is, I'm going to bring up, there's also a lot of ballots with only, that came in all the states by the 5 states I mentioned, that conveniently that came out later that are only Biden voted. Like there's no senator, no congressman, no nothing. They only voted for Biden. And that, who the hell votes just picking out the presidential candidate, but don't go and vote, okay, I'm going to vote for this senator, I'm going to vote for this congressman. And surely most people do vote for propositions. They may not vote for judges and stuff, but pretty close they'll vote for other people, not just the president's elections only. Very unlikely. In fact, highly unlikely. And now, of course, if that was the case, why is it, if that was, there are these Biden-only votes occurred only in the battleground states, conveniently. You don't see those in places like California, New York, Connecticut, or any place else. Just in places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm talking, I can go down, it's Phoenix, Arizona, Clark County, which has its own issues that I'll get into. So, there's a lot of problems, okay? In Wisconsin, there was an issue that's pretty interesting. Is in Wisconsin, if you look at the suburbs, are like literally circling around Madison, actually. Now, this will blow your mind, okay? Now, there's about we had a lot of people vote in our elections. So let's say 60%. The best scenario, let's say 70%, you can say registered out of registered voters, 70% vote. That's like really high, right? Let's see even worse than that. Well, do you know in Madison, and you go right around all uh, um, the suburbs, literally, so you can draw a circle around Madison. It was 100% of registered voters voted. Where that? No way in hell. Okay, so that points to highly possible of ballot dumping. Okay, fake ballots that were dumped. Marked, dumped, sent off. Who the hell knows? Okay, that was another issue. Now there was the issue of observers. By federal law, not even state law, federal law, both candidates have a right, or they call it partisan observers, have the right, absolute right, to review all mail-in or absentee ballots. Preventing such would be a clear violation of election law, and because of that, it could highly possible throw out any votes because they're considered incredulous. This is why they are doing an audit. Now, if they have a true audit, they'll have an observer from both sides. They pull out the ballot and they go, okay, here's the envelope it came in, and they have to have that. Otherwise, that ballot is gone. It's considered invalid. So they better have their records. So this ballot came from this envelope, and there's a signature on it. Does it match the signature on the roll? Is there such a person on that? Is there not 100 years old or 90 years old or not dead? And are they really an American citizen is a big question. But they have to substantiate that. And if that ballot came in on time before November 3rd at 8 p.m., for example, for Pennsylvania and Michigan, the same thing. It has to be even earlier. It'd come on time. But they have to allow the observers. Obviously, we know conveniently in every city, Atlanta, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, every contested election right now, every contested battleground state, conveniently, every single the GOP observers were prevented from watching. They were told to go 100 yards back, and they made this BS excuse of 6 feet. I'm sorry, there's even saying 6 feet because it's COVID. Where does it say that? You made up that law. Again, it would be made up by somebody within, let's say, a supervisor or somebody official. That law, in order, I know it's COVID, but excuse me, they could have had the legislature. Okay, we're gonna, because COVID, we're gonna have to allow 6 feet separation from observers. But technically, that would be make it a little hard, because how could you look at something 6 feet far and hold up something like a book or anything, a letter. Take a letter and hold it up 6 feet apart, and you tell me, can you read it? Okay? That's actually preventing the observer to review what the hell you're doing, which is the whole point of observing. That would no way hell pass in the legislature. They arbitrarily do this, and again, that is a violation of federal law. In Detroit, there was actually so bad that they even put boards in the windows to prevent observers from looking through the windows. They abused and physically pushed out observers from entering. There was a federal court order to allow observers, and there was a Bonnie, I believe, Bondi, Pam Bondi, and other representatives for Trump were allowed by the court order to go view these ballots, and they were prevented. They said, screw you, prevented, go call a cop. So, and the sheriff department within Detroit refused to get involved. Again, a clear violation of their rights, but this actually makes it more precedent that nefarious things were happening in prevention. And by the way, just recently I just watched. You can check it out. Go on Giuliani's YouTube video, and he shows serious evidence of how the the workers were instructed to do nefarious acts for changing ballots and things like that. And now we're finding out why. If somebody's hiding something, it's then we obviously know something's going on. And here's going back to common sense. It just popped in. I was thinking about. I was telling somebody, it's like, you know, a crime has been committed. You don't have to be you don't have to be like a detective. If you walk into a room and people are trying to cover up something, and you hear somebody screaming and yelling and shots being fired, and then somebody runs outside with a gun. Okay? And then you walk in, there's blood everywhere. And then you see a dead body. Okay, a dead body, shots fired. Somebody ran out of the house with a gun. Would you connect those two? Now, if you were prevented from seeing the dead body, and you're prevented from talking about the person was shooting the gun, and prevented of talking about you heard some woman screaming or a person getting killed and shots being fired, there's some serious problem in our country. And that's the serious problem we have right now. That's being, we're starting to see. Trying to use that as a sort of like relationship to what we're experiencing and witnessing in full body. But anyway, getting back to where I was. We know millions of ballots nationally have been, like I had said before, only Biden name on it with no other measure and no other candidate's names on this. This is a fact. We're finding this more and more, and it's totally illogical. I mean, if I again told somebody that, you'd go, what the hell? What would you think if it was, hey, by the way, and this is going to the other side, we only had ballots that had Trump's voted on ballots. They didn't vote for any senator. They didn't vote anything. No congressman, no nothing. Just Trump. Please. Please. Use your brain. Use your common sense. Like I said, a little kid would figure that out. Don't be naive. Don't be a moron. Don't be gullible. Use your common sense. We know something's wrong, and now we're seeing the facts. Right now, we're witnessing thousands upon thousands of whistleblowers and eyewitness testimonies under perjury of law, by the way. When they do those affidavits, somebody asks them, whoa, what's an affidavit? Anybody say? I said, no. Affidavit is like, you go into court, and they put you on the witness stand, and you swear under oath that you saw this and this and this. And by the way, if you don't, it's perjury. And by the way, it says there 10 years minimum because it's a federal. By the way, it's a federal affidavit. It's a little harsher than a state. Federal is a little harsher on affidavits. So if you perjure yourself, I don't think anybody's gonna lie for anything and go to jail for 10 years if they didn't actually see it. And by the way, go look on there's examples. I was shocked reading the samples on some of these affidavits, and Giuliani was looking at them. Some people, who's Giuliani? Why the hell is he? He's just Trump's lawyer and blah, blah, blah. He's a very credible lawyer. He was a prosecutor. Brought down the mob and Gotti. He's probably the most distinguished federal prosecutor in the Northeast in history. We'll remember that because he was a great mayor. So this question, just because of his support for Trump, then you have to be a little bit stupid to not take his word. Then don't. He actually always comes up and shows evidence. You consistently see that, and maybe you don't like the evidence. That's fine. Maybe you don't like him as a person, the way he talks. But he does lay out the facts. He does lay them out. And if you don't like it, that's the way it is. His stuff is going to be credible. It's being exposed. So those thousand, he's not the only one. We have thousand upon thousand whistleblowers and eyewitnesses and other testimonies with that I said they are just exposing and articulating the massive election fraud that was occurring in so many nefarious manners. I mean, it's becoming more clear this was a racketeering operation by many people within the Democratic Party, and with the Biden campaign. Now we know why they were so quiet and didn't really do anything, and why they went to Philadelphia and certain places. There was something that went on, and if you think about it, using your own common sense, I think they were rather surprised that so many Trump support. There was so much voters for Trump, and so they thought they could just squeeze in a couple of votes to just get by, right? And then when it came down, like in what happened in Pennsylvania, it was holy hell. And in fact, all the states, Michigan, I think it was a couple 100,000, and this all around the country, Michigan, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He was substantially ahead. And then that magic 1 a.m. thing, and then they stopped the machines. What the hell? They stopped the machines from counting, and then 3 hours later, it's 4 o'clock, and magically we wake up and, oh my God, 700,000 votes came in for Biden. Suddenly, 200 plus came in from nowhere, magically dropped down for Biden inside from Michigan. I mean, in my last show, actually, I gave a prediction of the of Trump, and I swear, I think I was on the nose. I think maybe possibly Colorado is wrong. I still think he won. Honestly, I think he may have won New Mexico. I think there was something going on there. And I think he won Minnesota. Honestly, I think that something went down on Minnesota. This is just my gut. I think something went on there, but the percentage I thought were like on the nose. I think he was going to be between anywhere from 3 to 5% in most states. This was going to be a real heavy landslide. I don't think the Biden campaign and the Democrats expected it as such, and that's why they didn't, as they say, pee a little, they peed a lot, so everybody heard them. There's actually a saying, they say that in the Middle East. They say, if you're gonna pee a little bit so nobody hears you. But if you pee a lot, everybody in around the whole house will hear you, and they know that what you've done something, right? And the whole point that as a slang, meaning if you're gonna do bad, if you're gonna do something, questionable, do it very quietly, little bits, so nobody sees it. But if you're going to do a whole lot of it, everybody's going to see it, and this is actually what's unfolding. I mean, it literally is backfiring in the Democrats. It's backfiring in Biden, and more substantially. I always wonder if it is substantially is backfiring on the media. They are going to be as bad, having less credibility for the last 4 years. They basically are they're going to be imploding. I can see lawsuits filed. I can see nobody's going to look at them. Their viewership is going to go way down. There's people still going to watch them. They're going to have to reinvent themselves. I think they're gone. They're gone. You'd have again. You have to be a stupid moron to watch them and think they have credibility. New York Times, the same thing. Washington Post, toilet paper. It's sad. It's sad because you look back in the days of when we had Walter Cronkite and Brokaw and all the back in the 70s and 60s when we had credible news sources that they just, here's the facts and then you decide. Of course they had editorials, but they had people hear the facts and they allowed you to decide. Now we don't have news agencies. We have propagandists, and we have people telling their opinions. Look at they go headline news, and they, here I'll give you an example. There was, I believe the press secretary for Trump was holding up, and she was presenting her case, going, hey, by the way, there was serious fraud and irregularities, and everybody's questioning evidence. Well, here's the evidence. And when she did that, Neil Cavuto on Fox suddenly cut her off and says, this is all bullshit. What the hell kind of journalist does that? He threw his opinion, cut her off, and said, allowing the whole thing come in. And then she says, well, you know what? My opinion, I don't know if this is credible. That's his opinion. That's his opinion. But to cut off what she was saying is literally cutting off information. It's editing information as a propagandist instead of being a real journalist. They're no better than Pravda of the former Soviet Union. In fact, worse, because people think they're credible, and they're not. And people are going to start recognizing that they're crap, they're bullshit. I mean, look at YouTube and social media, how incredible what they do. Facebook censoring people, putting their little things on. Well, Google says that Trump is according to the AP, like AP or any of these people are fucking lawyers or the law. They're not. Okay? And I'm going to tell you something at the end that I always, hopefully I can find it. It was on Facebook that somebody, actually I posted on my side, but took it from my end. And I was surprised. Hopefully I can find it. I'm going to save it for the end. I don't do this often. But I'm going to read it to you that somebody had sent to me. And I actually copy and pasted it and put it on my Facebook. I thought it was pretty brilliant stuff, and I'll explain it later, but it points to all this information, and I want people to be self-critical thinkers. That was my point. I used to have a show called When Pigs Fly, and the whole point was and there was a radio show that I had on BBS Radio. That whole point of my show, I also change. I learn things, and then you be self-critical thinkers, and this is what we're going through and experiencing. People have to learn to be critical thinkers. This is the experience of it. Not just Trump winning or, and for America to have real votes and real elections, that we can judge and see that, this was real election, not manipulated. But this is for your own in the future too. This is that experience. So now I have mentioned about the observers being prevented from checking out, reviewing mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania, but this was just Pennsylvania. It happened also in Michigan, Detroit, and Wisconsin, in Atlanta, and also Las Vegas. I can name every state that also in Phoenix has occurred. It literally occurred in everywhere happened to be a Democrat-run city or county. How coincidence. It also, that's why I'm saying this is totally organized. This is not by accident. Now, somebody asked me about the marked ballots. And yes, there were certain legal ballots marked. Somebody told me, well, is it really watermarked? Well, let me put it this way. From my sources, there were certain technologies used that they can figure out if there are fake ballots that were used. And the reason why somebody says, oh, well, doesn't the state create the ballots? I says, sort of. The paper that it's printed on actually comes from the federal government. The federal government, that's why you'll see every ballot pretty much the same standard because it uses the same paper. You'll see that little coloring thing on it. It's red and white and blue, right? And they have all these little things on it. They're pretty much standard. Pretty much the same thing, except for each state stamps in, you'll see like whether it's Nevada, California, they all put their own little issues and their own candidates on there. That's what's put by the state. So here's the paper, and then that's by the feds, and then that's stamped. And so it's the paper ballot. The ballot itself it has been tracked, you can call it. And that's all I'm going to get into for right now. but you can guarantee there is a tracking of what was legal ballots and not. I would also talk about another issue that is. I know this is going long, but I've held off for a while, and that's why I'm doing the show today. In California, I thought was pretty interesting. This is another thing that I thought people living in California. I think there was substantial fraud in California too. I don't know if Trump could ever win California. Who knows? But I definitely believe that they did something to manipulate to affect several very contested elections, so to speak, in California. I'm going to tell you, like Joe Collins, for example, I felt he would defeat Maxine Waters. I still believe that. And I believe there's more GOP candidates actually won. There is reports that there were actually 2 million ballots that were mailed out, more than registered voters. In California alone, we know that there were 8 million more ballots mailed out than registered voters in the state of California. And they also, if you look at what was voted on, this tells you a little hint that something went down wrong. Every single Democrat measure, they had measures on there to raise taxes, institute racial profiling for employment and benefits, and there's a couple others. They literally, everyone went down, except for the GOP supported one, which is about contract labor. So people who who work at Lyft, or Lyft drivers or Uber drivers, there was California tried to make them employees, and so there was a measure to overturn that, and that was backed actually by the GOP. Democrats were against it, and what happened was that got voted in. So think about that. Issues for Democrats went down to the ground, but the GOP stuff went up. There was a surge of Trump supporters everywhere, by the way, marching in everywhere in California, even in LA, everywhere. And then the people are really upset with Democrats right now. Right now, I know people who live in California are very upset of their governor, their mayors, what's going on. I don't know if you recently, Los Angeles, for example, I heard they not only cut funding for the police, they further cut another 20% out, and then they added on top they no longer have are reducing or no longer having the sexual assault units. They're gone. Okay, so you get raped, oh well, who cares? That's California, right? So I believe there's something went on in California, and hopefully after the situation with the presidential thing, it's not over. They need to go through a lot of these states. That's my point. I think there's some serious questions, including California, that went on. There's also a report, and I mentioned this before, and this is actually found out in Phoenix alone. Remember I was talking about Biden-only voters? Well, they found only Biden-only ballots. This is why it's so important. 45,000 Biden-only ballots in Arizona and Phoenix. That was a dump. Okay, so they got problems in Arizona. And then the question of the drop off of ballots after 1 p.m. and then incorporated suddenly giving the lead in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, so on. Same thing. We know what happened. Biden and the Democrats, I believe, they keep on always saying, and you'll notice their words too. They sort of like subliminally, or is it obvious? I don't know what the other, but they always say, "Hey, we got to count all the ballots." They had in mind counting all the ballots. Oh, whatever comes in, keep printing them out. We got to count them all. Hey, fill them out. Come on, workers, come on, so we can get over that edge to make sure that Biden's president. Oh, he doesn't have the vote. Okay, print some more. Because they kept on saying count all the ballots. They never say count the legal ballots. And you notice they never will say legal or verified lawful ballots. They don't really want a recount either, or an inspection of the ballots or their envelopes that came in. You know, a child could see the crime a mile away, what they were doing. You know, why were they hiding this crime that was happening? We realize it, and then we see the results. It went, and a guy came in with a gun. We saw the guy with a gun run into the house. Bang, 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 bang. He runs out with a gun. Woman shot dead. Who's the murderer? We pull out the bullets. It's his gun. Game over, right? Pretty much. Trump, I believe, is going to prevail. He's going to prevail with the Supreme Court. The issue with Dominion is totally fraud. The massive fraud that's being exposed. And most important, the fake media, I believe, is going to crash. And unfortunately, I believe the biggest problem is with the media is the people who actually believe the media. And for 4 years or plus, it's been the media that's perpetuating, and not when I say media, I'm also including Twitter and Google and YouTube and all of these. They're all sort of the conundrum of pushing people's buttons, emotional buttons, and they've done it now. Now they're gonna heighten all these people. Oh man, Biden won. Oh my God! And when they find out that Biden actually lost, chaos, violence, people, what do they expect is going to happen? Is this what they knew? Maybe they surmised it? This is the irresponsibility of our media. This is our very problem with media today, with these fake news outlets. They're not news outlets. And when Trump said they're pretty much an enemy of the American people, yeah. I mean, you're pushing people's emotional buttons with fear, because that's all they do. Look what they did with COVID. Fear, 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 fear. They didn't know any of the facts. Nobody knew what was going on, and yet we're so in fear of a disease that might kill up to 1% of the people affected by it. 1%. Think about that. 1%. You get a better chance dying driving on the road, by the way. Yeah, that's a fact. So are we fearful of going out on the road and driving a car? No. This is crazy. I mean, there's even questions whether, I'm not going to go into the thing about masks and stuff, but I had studied when I went to UC Davis, when I went to college. I worked in the man laboratories, and I worked with DNA and all that stuff. And I can tell you for a fact, first of all, viruses or viroids are extremely small. They're 0.15 they're microns, or 0.15 microns. That's how the size of a virus is. And that, for example, COVID is about 1.15, which is the average virus. The hose, even on a surgical mask, by the way, is 0.3. Get it? So it's half the size of that little hole. So, you think that mask protects you. I don't know. I mean, I can go on about COVID, but I'm not going to get into. There's a lot of question marks on COVID and, stuff like that. I think there's a lot of fear mongering with a lot of things, and that's how they push people's buttons. Fear the other guy. They're the evil ones. You can see, look what they do. Look what they prepare. Oh, he's the racist. He's the homophobe. Look what this and then they do this fear mongering with Trump, which was all bullshit, and they do that with his supporters. They do. If he was such a racist, how come his support for minorities went up? Come on. It's BS. It's BS. People have to wake up to what's going on. You're being fooled. You're being misled. And usually people who are getting misled, it's pushing on your buttons because your own ego. The worst case is when a person finds out they've been fooled. They can't deal with it. And that's what they're doing. This is how dangerous the media is. And I'm bringing this up because I feel it's important now. I was thinking about this a lot. and I've talked with people close to me, and that was our biggest concern. What happens? Because we know people who are diehard Biden supporters. I don't, I recognize they don't like Trump and they support Biden. Okay, that's their choice. I don't agree with it. Maybe I feel they're uninformed, blah, 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 whatever. But when the media does this twist and make them look like, yeah, he's already won when he's never won, and if they brought him to reality from the very go, okay, he's a projected winner, but we have to wait. Just like you're watching a football game, it's close. Nobody calls the game a football game that's only 3 points difference, and you're in the first half. I even just thought of that right now. I was thinking about that. Have you ever heard of football? Somebody calling, okay, it's all over. So and so team won. They're leading by 3 points. It's the first half. That's it. We're done. We won. But the game's over. The game's over. No, you still got the other half to play. And it's being so close. All they have to do is kick a field goal and tie up the game, right? Somebody just has to score a touchdown and they win the game, right? They can do it even in the last second. Well, it's contested, and that's where we're at. But when the media portrays this as an absolute thing that, oh yeah, it's done, it's finished, he is now he's been crowned the president-elect, that's malfeasance, that's disgusting, and it's fraud on the American people. And it's absolutely dangerous what they did. Absolutely dangerous. And I'm telling you, I hold them responsible for any violence that occurs after this. When Trump is declared the president for the next 4 years and people start going ape shit over this stuff, I'm telling you, people need to point their finger at the media. Not just the Democrats, because they're bad at what they did by this whole racketeering election fraud. That's a one issue that needs to be dealt with. Those people need to be seriously prosecuted. If Barr and DOJ doesn't, that's hello. Then we don't have a government. We don't have, who the hell would why would you respect any law official? Why would you respect the police if we don't have equal justice? These people need to be prosecuted for what they did. And that includes Biden, which I told him before, with his treasonous behavior with China and activities with his son and his whole family. I mean, it's one thing corruption, but they actually, I believe, they committed treason, which I went into in a prior show. I'm not going to get into that. But that story wasn't even put out by the media. In fact, they tried to shut that down. This is what I'm telling you why it's so dangerous. We live in really weird, dangerous times. We almost feel like we live in a Orwellian kind of book. I mean, George Orwell could write this book, okay? We're like sort of like a semi-Stalinist Soviet Union almost. We're heading there. We're being manipulated with this BS fraudulent media. And that's part of course, before the elections. Look what they did with the poll, or fake polls, and then after the polls, they're still continuing, and then they don't want to listen to the evidence, and then if it's the evidence coming out, oh well, it's not enough evidence that it'll change the results of the election. How the hell do they know? Are they God? Are they judge? Have they actually seen all the evidence? No, they have. Oh, I called some official. No, who the hell do they talk to? Come on, BS. All right, that's why they give you anonymous sources, anonymous that we heard, maybe hearsay. We all heard what they did during the BS, what they did with impeachment. It was all hearsay. Oh, this person heard, this person is my opinion, and I think, and it was based upon my opinion. But when it got down, everything was opinion, no facts. Opinions are not facts. Opinions are not witness testimony. I saw something happen. That's a witness. Not I heard from somebody who said something. Yet they made it like it's a fact. This is the weird times we live in. And we're witnessing it right now with these elections. And Trump is exposing it. That's why I like him. He may have a big mouth and the way he talks. He's just like another New Yorker. I'm sorry for other New Yorkers, but New Yorkers are pretty straight up. They tell things how they to your face, and they have a weird way of sometimes saying stuff, especially like Queens. That's how he is. He worked in the construction field, but damn well he, as they said, promises made, promises kept. And look at the world. We're actually the most calmest thing in the world, right? How many conflicts do you see around the world now? Almost none. Literally almost none. Very little. How much terrorist attacks? We just had one or two in Europe. And those are very minute. We haven't had anything. And look at the economy in the United. Look at the recovery in the United States economically. Look at everything he's accomplished. I can go. I already went through all the lists in past shows over and over again. But he turned to be dead on. And maybe it's because this is what they're afraid of. The media. They're all concerned. And I went into this thing about globalists versus anti-globalists. And that's actually a fact. You can look on my show. I went into it before. I may present something else more of it when I'm allowed to, because I have a lot of information about that. But I'm telling you, there is a serious stuff that's happening behind the scenes. And Trump is working for us, the people. Okay? Now, another thing that we're going to see is, besides mentioning what I mentioned, I'm sad about that fear-mongering that's being presented by the media and what's going to come out of their calculated propaganda and the reflections afterward when we find out, oh yeah, Trump's still our president for the next 4 years. But here's the other issues that are coming up. You're going to foresee them. First of all, the legislature in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona. You're probably not told this. The legislature decides on certification of its votes. So, what that mean is they will certify the election, and then they present the ballots to allow people to, their representative electors for electoral college. But these 5 states, by the way, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, will not certify the votes until a complete scrutinous audit of the ballots, and only legal ballots are counted. And without any certification by the legislation, no electors will be at electoral colleges as delegates for these states. The Constitution, as I reiterate, gives the sole authority to the legislature, sole authority for this process as well. So, the results of the Supreme Court, the judicial rulings, and possibly throwing out ballots, if they are commingled with, like I said, aforementioned about the being lawful ballots with illegal ballots, they're going to throw those out, and they can do it by counties or the whole thing voided. We're going to see something change. I believe Trump will end up getting Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, more than likely Nevada when they go through what happened in Clark County. There's actually evidence of a huge magnitude of illegals who actually voted in Clark County. This is actually well documented that's happened in California. They have a serious problem with illegals voting in federal elections. I didn't know illegal people, non-citizens, is a fact that have voted for their elections. There's a problem with that. And let's say Supreme Court throws out each of these states. Let's say the worst scenario, neither Biden or Trump reached that minimum of 270. Then the Constitution states with each state will have a vote of one delegate representing each state to vote for president. What that means is then the legislature within each state then will go, okay, they hold their hands up and they go, we decided we're sending one vote for Trump or one vote for Biden. So California has a vote, Oregon has a vote, Nevada has a vote, Wyoming has a vote. Get the picture? So 50 votes, 50 states. And out of those states, then you have 31 of those states are GOP legislature and the majority of the state legislatures. So you know what's going to happen. That's 31 states going toward Trump, making him the president. I believe that happened. I have to totally recall this, but it happened in the late 1800s, something very similar, and then they ended up going into with the infamous compromise. I believe it was actually two candidates were busted for election fraud. So this is not unusual happening in America. And then they ended up picking a third candidate. The third candidate ended up winning the election. I forget which president it was, but I remember that from the time. I didn't look it up, but just a little history. You can look that up if you remember. You find it, let me know on comments or whatever. Anyway, the last, I truly believe Trump's going to prevail, and I believe the Supreme Court. We have technically a 6-3 for constitutionalists. I know people question Roberts. Even if he doesn't, we still have 5-4 constitutionalists. And after pissing off, the Supreme Court, it's going to be very interesting what happens there. I very much doubt they'll allow those votes to be carried through with Pennsylvania and Michigan, perhaps, and others. They may even just call this a whole conundrum of massive election fraud. And therefore, the Supreme Court could literally allow the states to present their own delegates and go to that section in the Constitution, I believe, of the 12th Amendment, so that every state just sends in one delegate representing that I mentioned, so they'd still win. So either course, I think Trump's going to win. Honestly, I think Trump's actually going to win before that. I think Trump will end up possibly getting to 290 to 300 plus. I think he's also they're going to find that he actually won the popular vote, if that really matters. It doesn't, but for that, hey, he didn't get all the popular vote. I think if we're a real republic with a real DOJ and a real attorney general, and then obviously, by the way, they have to get rid of Wray, and we have a real director, an FBI director. I think one of the best FBI directors, I would throw in if they ever listen to me. I think Sidney Powell should run the FBI. She's the most straight up arrow I can think of right now. If they did this, I think, and prosecuted all the people, every single one, for these crimes of election fraud and racketeering, and also Spygate. Not let those people off too, because we went through 3 years of that. Equal protection in the law, and also that means justice for all, right? We always say justice for all. I don't think it should stop there. I think that's where it stops. And I don't mean to go, hey, we're like a hit enemies list. This is not enemies list. This is not about politics or going after political enemies. It's for righteousness and law. And if somebody broke the law, it shouldn't matter. They're a politician, an ex-president, or a vice president, ex-vice president, or a senator, or a congress member. It doesn't matter. And they can be even Twitter. By the way, I think the owner of Twitter has a legal problem. I think he committed a crime, personally, because he meddled in our elections. I don't know if there's any law in the books for that, but if they didn't, they should surely shut down that. I believe that the antitrust suits are hemming. I believe that we're going to see in the future, thank God, with Trump being there another 4 years, not only are we going to have these massive Rockefellerian conglomerates of like Google and YouTube and Facebook and all these like social media and these tech companies broken up somehow. that it will actually open up a doors for competition, which is always great in our industry, in our in capitalism, and it will push for greater standards and things. And it also, they need to adjust things so that in these worlds that the laws apply to old. They have to adjust the laws to apply to new technologies. I believe with Trump being president, we will also find in the world to come that it will become more credulous, and things are going to be a lot better as far as both economically. I believe also around the world. I believe in the future I could actually see peace in the Middle East. I could see the Arab and Israeli Arab conflict end. I believe also the Palestinian Israeli conflict ending. I could see things situated with China finally. I believe Iran could be finally dealt with and situated. I see optimism in the future with President Trump, and not just geopolitically and around the world, but also here. I also think that he would be able to finally do a comprehensive immigration program, which would maybe some people, friends of mine who are Republicans, might be upset about because they make, oh, well, that's animosity. But I think he would do something where people who are living over 5 years never committed a crime. They came here illegally, but they've been here for 18 years. Okay, give them, they're on the back of the line kind of thing, and give them a permit for staying, a worker's permit kind of thing. And then they just work their way up and pay their fees or whatever, and then expanding DACA. He's always talked about, of course, we have security on our borders. We have a merit system on the immigration. I think as far as other measures, I think fixing our infrastructure, fixing critically, I think he can finally address the issue, which we have a problem nobody ever talks about because some people are ignorant. I think we finally fix the situation with the Federal Reserve and the platform of fractionalized banking that makes us sort of like perpetually in debt. There's tons of things that I could see Trump do with the next 4 years that make bring along peace through prosperity, and the malfeasance and nefarious acts by the globalists, and respecting other nations and other peoples, and we are all Americans. He transformed stuff. We're no longer, we are a salad bowl, but we are all Americans. I think that changes things. So anyway, I want to read off one thing this friend of mine had sent to me, and I thought it was really interesting. Critical thinkers say, "Give me all the evidence, and I'll research it myself, and I'll come to my own conclusions using my own discernment. I trust myself, my wisdom, and I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe in." Number 2, a non-critical thinker says, "I don't care what evidence there is. I was told it's not real, so I'm not going to let others see, hear, think, or discern for me. I'm going to let others see, hear, think, and discern for me. I'm going along with the crowd." The brainwash, folks, are non-critical thinkers that will actually mock and bully critical thinkers, trying to force them to conform to the crowd. And even smart folks, are failing this test. Think about that when they attack African Americans who decide to vote for Trump and find out their own information, or they decide to leave the Democrat Party and become a Candace Owen or Kanye West or Ice Cube, Lil Wayne. I go on and on. Or any others. It's amazing. We're living in very precarious times. I know everybody's on edge. We're going to be on edge for, I believe, in the coming months. But hold on, I am an optimist, I believe. And I'm not saying that just because I'm an optimist. I do know things I can't talk about, but I do know that things are happening for the better for us. And I do honestly believe that when all's said and done, we're going to see Trump as our president for the next 4 years. Thank you, all of you, for watching. God bless you all. Thanks again.